Why did you bring it back if you planned to steal it? Darren Cole's voice cut across the pharmacy as the security alarm screamed. Marcus Reed stood at the counter with one hand beside the white medicine bag marked 417, its blue seal untouched beneath a red theft hold sticker. Zoe hugged her red bicycle helmet to her chest. In the dim consultation area, a quiet woman in a navy coat watched Darren cover the shipping label with his palm. 3 hours earlier, Marcus had been guiding his cargo e-bike through Eastwood with the last pale strip of daylight caught between the brick buildings. The chain clicked whenever he pushed uphill. Cold air slipped through the worn cuff of his charcoal delivery jacket, carrying the smell of wet pavement, bus exhaust, and fried onions from the corner carryout. His old phone vibrated in the handlebar mount, warning him that the battery had fallen below 10%. He ignored it long enough to finish the final delivery, photograph the doorstep, and check that the insulated carrier behind him was empty. Or what looked empty. By the time Marcus collected 8-year-old Zoe from his neighbor's apartment, the streetlights had come on. Zoe climbed onto the passenger seat, fastened her red helmet, and showed him the Silver Star sticker peeling at one corner. "Can we fix it when we get home?" she asked. "Before homework," Marcus promised. He was lifting the insulated carrier to lock it when something shifted beneath the folded divider. A soft, heavy slide. Marcus stopped. Under the removable panel sat a white pharmaceutical bag he had never scanned into his route. The blue tamper seal stretched cleanly across the opening. A small electronic temperature tab blinked yellow near the corner, and the black number 417 showed through the clear document sleeve. Marcus checked his delivery screen twice. No remaining stop, no canceled order, no message explaining why a sealed shipment was still in his possession. Zoe leaned closer but kept her hands on her helmet. "Is that somebody's medicine?" Marcus looked at the blinking temperature tab. "Yes. Do they need it tonight?" He did not know. That was enough. Their apartment was 12 minutes in the opposite direction. The pharmacy was nearly 2 miles back, and Marcus had already used most of the charge in the bike battery. He also knew that every late minute meant more cold air on Zoe's face and less time before her school night routine unraveled. Still, he secured the bag upright between the insulated walls, tightened the straps, and turned the bicycle around. Brooks Community Pharmacy was preparing to close when they arrived at 9:07. Half the ceiling lights were dark. A floor machine hummed near the greeting card aisle, and the sharp smell of disinfectant hung above the sweeter scent of Vanessa Hart's perfume at the pickup counter. Marcus entered carrying the sealed bag in both hands. "This was left in my carrier by mistake," he said. "I need a return receipt with the time, the seal condition, and the name of whoever accepts it." Darren's polite expression tightened for less than a second. Then he pressed the security button. The alarm erupted. Metal rattled overhead as the front gate descended halfway, trapping the cold night behind a grid of steel. Zoe grabbed Marcus's sleeve. "Dad, stay beside me." Marcus placed the bag on the counter and opened both hands so everyone could see he was not trying to take it back. Darren pulled a red theft hold label from beneath the register and slapped it across the white plastic before examining the seal. "High-value pediatric shipments do not simply appear in a driver's box," he said with the careful patience of a man explaining rules to someone he had already judged. "We protect patients here." Marcus looked at the blue strip, still unbroken beneath the red sticker. Above them, the small dome camera reflected the fluorescent lights. "Then record what came through your door," Marcus said. "It is sealed, and the temperature indicator is already yellow." In the consultation area, the woman in the navy coat lowered her pen. Her eyes moved from Marcus's open hands to Darren's thumb pressing over the route label. Darren called Leah from the back room and told her to bring the incident form. As she reached for the scanner, he leaned close enough that only those nearest the counter could hear him. "Do not scan that bag again." Marcus looked at the package lying face down beneath Darren's palm and realized the manager had called it pediatric before anyone had shown him the label. Darren's words settled over the counter with the soft precision of something rehearsed. "Pediatric. High value. Theft hold." Marcus looked at the white medicine bag beneath the manager's palm, then at the unbroken blue seal still visible under the edge of the red sticker. You knew what it was. I know our inventory. Then scan it. For a moment, nobody spoke. The floor machine continued humming near the greeting cards, turning slowly beneath the fluorescent lights, while the metal security gate trembled above the entrance from the force of its sudden stop. Zoe stood close enough that the sleeve of Marcus's charcoal jacket brushed her helmet each time he breathed. Darren's smile returned, small and professional. Mr. Reed, I understand this is stressful, but you are a contracted courier, not a pharmacy employee. There are procedures you may not be familiar with. He said it kindly enough for the customers to hear patience in his voice and authority in every word. Leah came from the back room carrying a clipboard and a handheld scanner. She was younger than Marcus had expected, with tired eyes and a Brooks Pharmacy badge clipped slightly crooked to her white coat. Darren took the clipboard before she reached the counter. Please confirm the shipment status. Leah glanced at Marcus, then at Zoe. The scanner felt too loud when she pressed the side button. A pale beam crossed the plastic bag and disappeared beneath Darren's hand. The system says it was released to Route E7 at 6:48, she said. Assigned courier, Marcus Reed. And was a return logged? Darren asked. Leah swallowed. No. Vanessa Hart stepped closer, her expensive perfume cutting through the disinfectant. She held her phone vertically, its camera pointed at Marcus, as though the accusation had already become a public service announcement. I hope someone is calling the police, she said. There are families waiting for medication while people like this treat deliveries like personal property. Marcus saw Zoe's eyes move toward the phone. He shifted half a step, placing his shoulder between his daughter and the lens without touching Vanessa or asking her to stop. Please don't record my child. Vanessa raised her eyebrows. Then perhaps you should not bring her into situations like this. She was with me when I found the bag. That is not the defense you think it is. Darren lowered his voice with practiced concern. Ms. Hart, we are handling it. Patient safety comes first. He turned back to Marcus. For everyone's protection, your courier access is being suspended pending review. Leah's scanner beeped again. Marcus's old phone vibrated in his pocket almost at the same moment. When he pulled it out, the screen was dim and cracked near one corner. A red notification filled the display. Access suspended. Beneath it, a second message warned that the incident might be reported to his contracting company and credentialing service. His rent was due in 4 days. The late notice already sat unopened on the kitchen counter at home. He felt that fact like pressure behind his ribs, but his face did not change. Darren fed a sheet of paper into the printer beneath the register. The machine clicked, warmed, and pushed out a single page that smelled faintly of hot toner. This is an incident acknowledgement, he said. Signing does not mean you are admitting criminal intent. It simply confirms that the medication remained in your possession after your scheduled route. It confirms your version, Marcus said. It confirms the system record. The system record does not show me returning it, because no one has accepted it. Darren's expression tightened, then softened again before anyone else could notice. You are making this harder than it needs to be. Behind Marcus, a customer murmured to another, Poor little girl. The reply came lower but not low enough. Imagine finding out your father steals medicine. Zoe's fingers pressed into the foam lining of her helmet. She did not turn toward the voices. She looked only at Marcus. Are they mad because you brought it back? The question was so quiet that Vanessa's phone nearly missed it. Marcus knelt, bringing himself level with his daughter. The tile was cold through the knee of his work pants, and the fluorescent light caught the peeling edge of the silver star on her helmet. He smoothed the strap beneath her chin, giving his hands something gentle to do. They are scared because they do not know what happened yet. But you told them. Telling the truth and being believed are not always the same moment. Did you do something wrong? Marcus held her gaze. No, he stood again without hurry. Across the room, Evelyn Brooks had stopped writing. She watched how he had answered without asking Zoe to hate anyone, without telling her the adults were stupid, without turning the child's fear into a performance. It did not prove he was innocent, but it did not fit the behavior of a man trying to escape responsibility. Darren placed the incident form on the counter and slid a pen across it. Sign here. Apologize to the customers for the disruption, and we can wait for corporate review without making this more serious. Apologize for what? For returning controlled medication outside procedure. There was no return procedure available because you refused to receive it. Darren looked toward Vanessa's camera. Mr. Reed, your financial situation does not excuse poor judgment. The words were gentle. The humiliation inside them was not. Marcus looked down at his worn jacket, the frayed cuff, the delivery gloves tucked into one pocket. He understood what Darren wanted the room to see. A tired courier, a child beside him, a man who needed the job badly enough to accept any version of events placed in front of him. Marcus pushed the pen back. You can suspend my account. You cannot suspend the patient waiting for that bag. The temperature tab blinked orange. Evelyn's eyes moved to the printed report. The digital clock above the pharmacy counter read 9:12. At the bottom of the page, the report showed a creation time of 9:11 and a typed description stating that the security seal had already been broken. Marcus looked at the blue strip still stretched cleanly across the bag beneath Darren's hand. If the seal was still unbroken, who had written that it was broken before anyone examined it? Marcus kept his eyes on the unbroken blue seal while the orange temperature light blinked against Darren's report. The bag needs cooling. Do not touch it. Then have your pharmacist stabilize it. The words came quickly, but the room answered slowly. The floor machine had stopped near the greeting card aisle, leaving only the low vibration of the refrigerators behind the pharmacy wall. Somewhere outside the half-lowered security gate, a city bus sighed at the curb and pulled away. Darren folded the incident report over the counter as though covering the false sentence could make it less visible. The shipment is already compromised, he said. Protocol requires us to isolate it. Marcus looked at the white bag sitting beneath Darren's palm. The seal was intact. The temperature indicator was not red, and no licensed pharmacist had examined it. Isolation does not mean letting it warm up. Darren gave him the patient smile people used when they wanted obedience to look like cooperation. Mr. Reed, you are not trained to make that determination. Marcus did not answer. He reached down slowly, keeping both hands where the camera could see them, and unzipped the insulated carrier beside his leg. Cold air escaped with the clean, mineral smell of melting ice. 2 flat gel packs remained inside, both still firm at the center. He had bought them himself after the contracting company stopped replacing damaged supplies. Without them, he could not accept temperature-controlled deliveries during the morning rush. Without a morning route, he would lose another day's pay on top of the suspension already glowing red on his phone. Rent was due in 4 days. Zoe's school lunch account had sent a reminder that afternoon. The refrigerator at home had begun making a dry clicking sound every time the compressor shut off. Marcus knew the exact weight of all those things. He also knew none of them belonged on the shoulders of the person waiting for the medicine. Dad? Zoe whispered, still holding the red helmet against her coat. Are those your last ones? Marcus glanced down at her. The peeling silver star caught the fluorescent light. They're the last 2. Then what will you use tomorrow? He lifted one gel pack and placed it against the outside of the medicine bag, careful not to disturb the red label or the blue seal. Tomorrow can wait its turn. Darren stepped forward. I told you not to interfere. Marcus positioned the second pack along the opposite side, creating a cold barrier without opening the package. His movements were unhurried and exact, the kind that wasted neither motion nor attention. Years earlier, he had learned that panic damaged more than equipment. He did not mention where he had learned it. He did not need to. You are altering evidence, Darren said. I'm preserving its condition. According to whom? According to the temperature warning you haven't checked. Vanessa's phone followed Marcus's hands. Her bracelet clicked softly against its case as she zoomed in, eager to capture what she believed was another mistake. Marcus saw the lens and adjusted the gel packs so the blue seal remained fully visible. Darren mistook the movement for hesitation. "This is exactly why couriers should leave medical decisions to professionals," he said. "You people think because you carry the bag you understand what is inside it." Marcus did not react to you people. He took the transport sleeve between two fingers and read the customer support number printed along the lower edge. His old phone showed 3% battery. He called anyway. The line rang twice before a recorded voice asked for the shipment number. Marcus entered 417. Darren reached for the phone. Marcus moved it onto the counter and pressed the speaker button before the manager could take it. A woman answered, her voice faint beneath the refrigerator hum. "Specialty transport support. May I have your courier credential?" Marcus gave his name and route number. "The shipment was left in my carrier without a completed scan," he said. "The seal is intact. The temperature indicator reached orange, but I have stabilized the exterior with 2 frozen packs. I need the intended destination and an emergency pickup." Keys clicked over the speaker. Darren's jaw tightened. Evelyn remained seated near the dark consultation room, one hand resting on her closed notebook. She was no longer watching Marcus's clothes or his cracked phone. She was watching the space he had left around the seal, the way he described only what he could verify, and the fact that he had not once asked when his account would be restored. "Shipment 417 is marked urgent," the support agent said. "Pediatric neurology. 8-year-old patient. Medication required tonight for breakthrough seizure control." Zoe's arms tightened around her helmet. She looked at the bag as if she could suddenly see the child on the other end of the route. Marcus lowered his voice. "How much time do we have?" "I need the temperature reading from the pharmacy scanner." Darren reached across the counter and ended the call. The screen went dark. A silence followed, thin and stunned. Marcus looked at him. "Why did you do that?" "Because this is now an internal investigation. There is a child waiting. There is an alleged patient attached to a compromised delivery." The phrasing was clean, cautious, almost compassionate. It turned a sick child into a question mark and delay into professionalism. Zoe shifted closer to Marcus's side. She did not speak, but her small hand found the fabric at his wrist and held on. Evelyn rose from her chair. The navy coat fell straight around her, plain except for the small mortar and pestle pin at the collar. She removed a folded scarf from around her neck and offered it to Zoe. "You look cold." Zoe looked to Marcus first. He nodded. "Thank you," she said, allowing Evelyn to drape it over her shoulders. The wool was dark gray and smelled faintly of cedar. Evelyn looked at the gel packs pressed around the medicine bag. "Let me replace those for you," she said to Marcus. "At least the cost." Marcus shook his head. "They stopped being mine when they became the reason his medicine stayed cold." Something in Evelyn's expression changed, but only slightly. Not trust. Not yet. A pause where certainty had been. Darren gave a quiet breath through his nose. "That sounds noble, Mr. Reed, but sentiment does not repair a compliance breach." Marcus touched the corner of the transport sleeve, not the seal. Beneath the newer label, a narrow strip of the original destination remained visible. He could make out the first letters of Ped Neuro before Darren shifted the bag away. Marcus reached for his phone again. 1%. He redialed support and placed it farther from Darren's hand. The same agent returned, speaking faster now. "Mr. Reed, I still need the pharmacy scan. The child's care team is waiting." "Send emergency transport," Marcus said. "The package is sealed and externally cooled." "We can do that, but there is another problem." The agent paused, and the keyboard stopped clicking. Evelyn's eyes moved from Marcus to the thin edge of the hidden label. "The destination currently attached to shipment 417, the woman said, is not a hospital." "Not a hospital?" Marcus repeated. "What destination do you see?" "A commercial annex on Holbrook Avenue," the support agent said. "That location is not authorized for pediatric specialty deliveries." The fluorescent lights seemed to sharpen above the counter. Darren's hand moved at once, flattening over the clear document sleeve as if he could stop the words from reaching the room. "The routing system occasionally displays temporary storage locations," he said. That does not mean anything improper occurred. Then let her read the address. This is an internal matter. There is a child waiting. The 3 sentences landed quickly. After them came only the low refrigerator hum and the faint metallic rattle of the security gate whenever cold air pushed against it. Zoe stood beneath Evelyn's gray scarf, her red helmet tucked against her ribs, watching the adults without understanding the system, but understanding that someone did not want the bag turned over. Darren leaned toward Marcus's phone. End the call. Marcus lifted it before Darren could touch the screen. The battery icon was a narrow red line. Please repeat the address, he told the agent. She did. Marcus knew the block. Holbrook Avenue ran behind a strip of closed warehouses and discount stores, nearly 4 miles from the hospital. There was no licensed pharmacy distribution center there. No pediatric unit. No reason a sealed seizure medication should have been sent to that address after hours. Darren gave a controlled sigh. Mr. Reed, delivery applications use staging codes. Couriers are not expected to interpret them. His voice remained smooth, almost helpful. He was offering the room a reasonable explanation. Software was complicated, contractors misunderstood things, managers handled the details. Evelyn watched him with the same patience she had shown Marcus, but her eyes no longer rested on his face. They had dropped to the bag beneath his palm. Is Holbrook one of your licensed staging sites? She asked. Darren looked toward her, clearly irritated that the quiet customer had joined the conversation. Ma'am, I appreciate your concern, but we cannot discuss protected shipment information with the public. I asked whether the location is licensed. That is not relevant to this gentleman's conduct. Evelyn accepted the answer without arguing. She stepped back half a pace, but her thumb pressed against the edge of her small mortar and pestle pin. Marcus noticed the gesture and nothing more. He did not know who she was. He only knew she had asked the question Darren avoided. The support agent spoke through the old phone again. Mr. Reed, the original destination field is no longer visible on my screen. It was overwritten at 8:41 p.m. Darren's eyes flicked toward Leah. That is enough. By what terminal? Marcus asked. I'm not authorized to disclose administrative access data. Can you preserve the call record? Yes. Do that. Darren reached over and disconnected the call. This time his fingertips struck the screen hard enough to slide the phone across the counter. It stopped against the medicine bag. You have now interfered with a controlled shipment twice, he said. First by retaining it, then by applying unauthorized cooling materials. Your actions may have changed the evidence. Marcus looked at the 2 gel packs resting against the outside of the bag. Condensation had begun to gather along their edges, leaving 2 dark rectangles on the white plastic without touching the blue seal. Darren was building a second explanation around the first. If the medication survived, Marcus had tampered with it. If it failed, Marcus had damaged it. Marcus did not argue with the trap. He looked instead at what Darren was hiding. A corner of the upper label had lifted where moisture touched the adhesive. Beneath it, a second strip of paper showed through, older, slightly yellowed, printed in darker ink. Marcus turned his head toward the overhead light. Move your hand. Darren did not. The bag is under pharmacy control now. Then let the camera see it. The dome camera above them reflected the bright aisles in its smoked surface. Darren's shoulders shifted almost imperceptibly, placing more of his body between the camera and the bag. Leah noticed. So did Evelyn. Marcus did not reach across the counter. He placed one finger on the dry edge nearest him and rotated the bag less than an inch, just enough for the lifted corner to catch the light. 2 labels. The top one carried the Holbrook Avenue Annex code. Underneath it, partly obscured by adhesive, were the letters Ped Neuro and the hospital routing symbol Marcus had glimpsed earlier. A timestamp sat at the bottom of the newer label, 8:41 p.m. To the right was the printer designation Admin 2. Why are there 2 labels? Vanessa asked from behind her phone. Her tone had changed. Not sympathy, curiosity. Darren answered without looking at her. Reprints are common when destinations are updated. After dispatch closes? Marcus asked. Emergency adjustments happen. Who authorized it? You are not entitled to that information. Marcus kept his voice level. A mistake explains one label. It does not explain who printed the second. For the first time, Darren's professional expression thinned at the edges. Bag for 17 should never have come back through that door. Zoe looked up sharply. Her small hand tightened around Marcus's sleeve. Dad, she whispered. The number was on the bottom. Marcus looked at her. What do you mean? He couldn't see it before. She pointed only with her chin, still holding the helmet. The bag was turned over when he said it. No one praised her. No one asked her to explain further. She had simply remembered where the number had been. Marcus looked back at Darren. The manager recovered quickly. The shipment number appeared on the courier alert. My phone never showed it. Then perhaps your device failed to refresh. Leah's scanner never completed the read. You are confused. Darren reached for the bag as if to carry it into the back room. Marcus placed his palm flat on the counter. Not on Darren, not on the package, only in the space the bag would have to cross. Before it moves, I want a photograph of both labels, the seal, the temperature tab, and the clock. You do not have permission. I'm preserving the condition of property you say I altered. Darren turned toward the camera and lifted his voice just enough to sound reasonable. Mr. Reed, this behavior is becoming disruptive. Marcus removed his old phone from the counter. 1% battery. The cracked screen flickered as he opened the camera. He did not zoom tightly on the labels. Instead, he stepped sideways until one frame held everything at once. The blue seal, the orange temperature tab, the corner of the lower hospital label, the newer Holbrook label, the admin 2 code, and the digital wall clock reading 9:24. That was how evidence survived argument, by keeping the pieces together. Evelyn's gaze settled on the printer code. Something in her face stopped. Marcus could not know that Admin 2 was reserved for management access, or that she had personally approved the restriction after an earlier compliance review. Darren saw her reaction and pulled the bag toward him. Marcus pressed the shutter. The phone vibrated once. Then the screen went black. He tapped it. Nothing. No battery symbol. No confirmation. Only his own reflection in the dead glass. Darren took the bag and moved it behind the register. There, he said softly. Now we can proceed without further contamination. Marcus stared at the lifeless phone in his hand, unsure whether the photograph had saved. But Evelyn was no longer looking at him. She was looking at the tiny admin 2 code on the label Darren had tried to hide, and at the manager who had known the number 417 before anyone in the room had shown it to him. The dead screen reflected Marcus's face, while Darren carried bag 417 behind the register. The photograph did not save, Darren said. We can stop turning a routine compliance matter into a spectacle. You don't know whether it's saved. Your phone is dead. The words came quickly. Then the room settled around them again, the refrigerator motors vibrating behind the wall, the faint drip of condensation from Marcus's gel packs, the dry scrape of Vanessa's shoe as she shifted her weight but did not lower her camera. Evelyn slowly placed her closed notebook on the chair beside her. Her gaze stayed on the narrow Admin 2 code until Darren turned the medicine bag away from the room. He pulled a fresh sheet from beneath the counter and smoothed it with both palms. Mr. Reed, I am going to offer you a practical solution. The paper slid toward Marcus beside a black pharmacy pen. At the top, in bold type, were the words Courier Incident Resolution. Darren pointed to the signature line as though presenting mercy. If Marcus acknowledged that he had accidentally retained the shipment, the store would recommend reopening his courier account. No police report.
No permanent misconduct flag.
A one-time hardship payment would be issued through the contractor before the end of the week. Marcus read the amount twice. It was enough to cover the rent notice waiting on his kitchen counter and leave a little for groceries. Zoe stood beside him under Evelyn's gray scarf, watching his eyes travel down the page. Would that make them stop being mad? She asked. Marcus did not answer until he reached the final paragraph. The print became smaller there. The pharmacy reserved the right to dispose of the shipment without independent temperature verification, external review, or further documentation. He touched the line with one finger. Why does signing this let you destroy the bag? Darren's expression remained calm. It allows us to follow hazardous product protocol. You said the medicine was already compromised. It almost certainly is. Then confirm it. That is not necessary. Marcus looked toward the pharmacy work area. A handheld temperature scanner sat in a charging cradle near Leah's station. No larger than a television remote, its screen glowing green. You have a calibrated scanner 10 feet away. Darren's mouth tightened. That equipment is restricted to.
Licence de personnel.
Then ask the pharmacist to use it. The pharmacist is preparing to close. A child is waiting. The pharmacist on duty, a gray-haired man named Dr. Patel, had been listening from behind the glass partition. Until then, he had kept his hands over a stack of prescription labels, caught between his manager and the scene at the counter. Marcus did not call him a coward. He did not demand that the man choose sides. He simply turned the agreement so Dr. Patel could see the disposal clause. I am not asking you to decide who is lying, Marcus said. I am asking you to measure the temperature before anyone destroys the only thing that can answer part of the question. Dr. Patel looked at Darren. A scan would take less than a minute. Darren gave a restrained smile. Doctor, corporate policy places incident control with management. Medication viability is a pharmacy decision. The room changed by less than a sound. Vanessa stopped moving. Leah lowered the clipboard she had been holding against her chest. Even Zoe's grip on the helmet loosened slightly. Darren lifted the agreement from the counter. We should handle this privately. Customers may misunderstand technical procedures. Then close the consultation room, Marcus said. Keep the camera on. Use 2 witnesses. Evelyn's eyes shifted toward him. There was no triumph in his voice, only a sequence. Protect the medicine, preserve the evidence, prevent anyone from rewriting the moment later. Darren stepped between Dr. Patel and the scanner. This courier has already applied unauthorized materials to the shipment. Any reading now would be unreliable. Marcus pointed to the gel packs resting against the exterior, away from the electronic sensor and away from the seal. The scanner reads the internal tag without opening the bag. If my cooling damaged the evidence, the result will show it. And if it does not? Evelyn asked from near the consultation room. Darren looked at her sharply. Ma'am, this does not concern you. You offered him money in front of everyone. You accused him in front of everyone. Now the measurement must happen in private. Darren softened his tone. I am trying to protect all parties from unnecessary embarrassment. Evelyn said nothing more. She opened her notebook, but instead of writing, she slipped one hand inside her coat pocket. Her phone screen lit briefly against the navy fabric. She typed a short message without lifting it into view. Preserve all Eastwood footage. Lock deletion permissions. Pull admin to access history. Marcus did not see the words. He only saw Darren's eyes follow the movement and then return too quickly to Dr. Patel. Doctor, Darren said, I am instructing you not to perform that scan. Dr. Patel removed his glasses, cleaned one lens with the corner of his coat, and replaced them. You supervise the store. You do not override my license. He took the scanner from its cradle. The soft electronic chime sounded louder than the alarm had. Darren reached for the power cord. Marcus did not grab his arm. He moved the charging cradle 2 inches away and said, Please don't interrupt the test. 3 words. No threat. No raised voice. Darren's hand stopped in the air because Vanessa's camera was still pointed at him, and the ceiling camera remained above them. Dr. Patel placed the scanner over the electronic temperature tab. The device pulsed blue, then displayed a string of numbers. He checked them once, opened the calibration menu, and checked again. Internal range is stable, he said. The medication has not crossed its discard threshold. Leah inhaled. Vanessa's phone dipped several inches. Somewhere near the greeting cards, a customer who had been whispering fell silent in the middle of a sentence. Darren stared at the screen. That cannot be correct. I ran it twice. The packs may have reset the indicator. They cannot reset the internal history. Dr. Patel turned the scanner so the camera could see. The shipment remained within usable range. Zoe looked up at Marcus, and for the first time since the gate had fallen, some of the fear left her face. Marcus did not smile at Darren. He did not say, "I told you so." He turned to Dr. Patel. "Can the hospital still accept it? If we transfer it now with a documented chain of custody?" Marcus nodded. "Then let's do that first." Darren gathered the agreement as though removing it from sight could erase the offer. No shipment leaves until corporate compliance authorizes release. Evelyn looked down at her phone. A reply had appeared. External courier en route. Hospital notified. Preserve physical bag after transfer. She closed the screen before Darren could read it. "An emergency transport vehicle is already coming," she said. Darren's professional mask slipped for half a second. "How would you know that?" Evelyn met his eyes. "Because someone finally completed the call you disconnected." Before he could question her further, headlights swept across the half-lowered gate. A white hospital transport van stopped outside. Two certified couriers approached carrying a locked cold chain case and a digital custody tablet. Marcus asked Dr. Patel to read the seal number aloud. Leah repeated it. One courier entered it into the tablet while the other photographed the blue strip, the red theft hold label, the orange temperature indicator, and both gel packs exactly where they rested. Marcus did not touch the bag until Dr. Patel instructed him to. Then he lifted it with both hands, placed it inside the locked case, and waited while each witness signed. The tablet displayed an optional compensation line for emergency courier assistance. Marcus left it blank. "You are entitled to reimbursement," the hospital courier said. "Get the medicine to the child," Marcus replied. "We can count dollars after somebody counts his breaths." The case locked with a heavy click. As the couriers carried it toward the gate, Darren stood behind the counter with the unsigned agreement folded beneath his palm. His version of the night had lost its first piece. The medicine was usable, the seal was intact, and Marcus had completed the transfer in front of witnesses. It did not prove who changed the route. It did not explain admin 2, but it proved the courier had not lied about protecting the bag. Marcus's old phone vibrated suddenly in his hand. The black screen flashed once, powered by some last reserve, and a cloud icon appeared beside the photograph from 9/24. Upload complete. Then a second notification replaced it. Administrative deletion. Request blocked. Evelyn saw the message before the screen went dark again. Her own phone vibrated almost at the same moment with a report from corporate security. Someone using Eastwood management credentials had tried to erase Marcus's photograph less than 30 seconds after it reached the server. The words "administrative deletion request blocked" remained on Evelyn's phone after Marcus's screen went dark. For one long second, nobody moved. The hospital transport van pulled away beyond the half-lowered gate, its white lights sliding across the glass storefront before disappearing into the Baltimore night. The refrigerator motors hummed behind the pharmacy wall. A drop of water fell from one of Marcus's empty gel packs and struck the tile with a soft, clear tap. Darren recovered first. "That message proves nothing," he said. "Automated systems reject routine cleanup requests all the time." "Routine cleanup?" Marcus asked. "Of a photograph tied to an active incident? You are not qualified to interpret administrative alerts." Darren reached toward Marcus's dead phone, then stopped when he noticed Vanessa was still recording. He turned the motion into an adjustment of his cuff. "This needs to be handled internally before more people misunderstand what they are seeing." Evelyn lowered her gaze to her own screen. The security report included the username that had submitted the deletion request, the terminal location, and the exact time. Eastwood Manager Console. 9:37 p.m., 16 seconds after Marcus's photograph reached the courier server. She typed another message beneath her coat. "Freeze Eastwood access logs. Pull every driver loss case for 18 months. Compare admin 2, camera gaps, and charity shipments." Her phone vibrated almost immediately. Authorized. The single word made Leah look up. She had been standing beside the scanner with her clipboard pressed against her chest, But now her eyes had fixed on Evelyn's screen. The older woman had not asked permission. She had not called a public helpline. Someone inside Brooks' corporate security had obeyed her without question. Darren noticed Leah noticing. "Leah, take the incident materials to my office." "The original report too?" she asked. "Everything. It belongs with the evidence." "I said everything." His tone remained quiet, yet one side of his jaw pulsed beneath the skin. Leah gathered the unsigned agreement, the 9/11 report, and the printed scanner result. Her fingers shook enough to make the pages whisper against one another. Marcus watched her glance toward the ceiling camera, then toward the narrow hallway leading to Darren's office. He understood fear when he saw it. Not guilt alone. Fear of what happened after a person stopped obeying. "Make copies first," Marcus said. Darren's eyes hardened. "You do not direct my staff." Marcus kept his hands at his sides. "Then let Dr. Patel decide what belongs in the pharmacy record." Dr. Patel stepped from behind the glass partition. "The temperature result stays in the medication file." "Of course," Darren said quickly. No one suggested otherwise. Leah looked at the report again. "This version says the seal was broken. We have already discussed that." "But it wasn't." The printer behind the counter stopped cycling. Its cooling fan wound down until the room became so quiet that Zoe's zipper made a small scratching sound when she pulled Evelyn's scarf closer around herself. Darren gave Leah a patient smile. "You are tired. Go home after you file the paperwork. You told me to mark it that way before the bag was examined." Vanessa's phone rose again. Darren turned his head slowly. "Be careful, Leah. Confusion during a stressful incident can damage people's careers." Marcus saw Leah's face close like a door. She lowered her eyes and carried the documents toward the back. He could have pushed her then. One sentence from her could strengthen his case. One public accusation could turn the room fully against Darren. Instead, Marcus stepped aside so she could pass without feeling trapped between him and her manager. "You do not owe anyone an answer while you are afraid," he said quietly. Leah paused, but she did not respond. Darren's expression sharpened. "Mr. Reed, stop interfering with my employee. I'm not asking her to speak. You are encouraging insubordination."
No.
"I'm giving her room not to be used." Evelyn looked at Marcus differently after that. Until then, the evidence had shown discipline. The intact seal, the temperature record, the photograph, the block deletion. This showed something harder to measure. The woman who had helped write the false report might be the fastest path to clearing his name, and Marcus had chosen not to press her while she stood vulnerable. His restraint did not prove every fact he believed. It proved what kind of victory he was willing to accept. 20 minutes later, the Eastwood store finally emptied. Vanessa left reluctantly after emailing herself the original video. Dr. Patel locked the pharmacy gate fully but remained inside to complete the transfer record. Zoe sat in a plastic chair near the consultation room, tracing the peeling edge of the silver star on her helmet, while Marcus called his neighbor to explain they would be late. He did not mention the suspension. He did not mention the rent. He only said Zoe was safe. Evelyn stood near the front window, the city lights reflecting across her navy coat. Her phone began receiving files from corporate security. First came the Admin 2 printer history, 11 late-night reprints in 18 months. Each had been generated between 8:39 and 8:44 p.m. Each replaced a hospital or charity clinic destination with a commercial annex code. Then came the camera audit. 7 minutes missing on every one of those nights. The gaps began within 60 seconds of the label reprints. Then came the driver loss reports. 11 contracted couriers suspended or terminated after being accused of retaining medication. None had received an independent appeal. Evelyn scrolled more slowly. The shipments shared another detail. Every one belonged to Brooks Promise, the company's charitable medication program for uninsured children, seniors, and patients with chronic illness. The program Darren praised in local interviews. The program he had stood beside at ribbon cuttings. The program built from a promise Evelyn had made after her younger brother nearly died waiting for medicine their family could not afford. Her thumb stopped on a spreadsheet titled Exception Recovery List. The name sounded harmless, administrative, almost compassionate. The columns were not. Short contract history, low average income, no legal representative, few prior complaints, high termination likelihood. Marcus Reed appeared on the third row. Beside his name was a note. Single dependent. Rental instability. Low appeal risk. Evelyn's face did not change, but the hand holding the phone became still. This was no random error. Someone had selected drivers whose lives made resistance expensive. Marcus saw the reflection of the spreadsheet in the dark window but could not read the words. He only saw Evelyn close her eyes for a moment, as though something in the file had reached farther than business. "What did you find?" he asked. She looked at him. "Enough to know this did not begin with you." Before she could say more, the hallway door opened. Leah stood there without her coat, holding her personal phone in both hands. Darren was gone from the front counter. His office door remained closed. "I need to show you something," Leah said. "Not here." They moved into the consultation room, leaving the door open and the ceiling light on. Zoe remained within Marcus's sight, seated beside Dr. Patel. Leah placed her phone on the small table and opened a voicemail. Darren's voice filled the room, lower and less polished than it had been in public. "Route it to someone the contractor will drop before they ask questions. Mark it as a driver loss. The charity account will absorb it." No one spoke when the recording ended. Leah opened a second file, then a third. Instructions to alter scan times. Warnings about her mother's medication coverage. A message telling her to remove 7 minutes from the camera archive because of a privacy incident. "He said he would cancel my mother's assistance if I refused," she whispered. "I changed the logs. Not all of them, but enough." Marcus looked at the phone lying between them. The easiest thing would have been to take it, send the files, and let Leah face whatever came next. Instead, he asked, "Is this the only copy?" "Yes." "Then it is not evidence yet. It is something he can say you edited." He showed her how to export the original voicemail with its metadata, then had her save one copy to an encrypted drive, one to corporate compliance, and one to an account Darren could not access. He did not touch the device until she handed it to him. He did not ask her to sign a statement. "You need whistleblower protection in writing before you put your name under anything," he said. Leah stared at him. "You could clear yourself tonight if I talk. Not if clearing mine destroys yours." Evelyn heard the words from the doorway. She had just received the door access report. A management badge entered the label room at 8:40 on every night the camera failed. Darren's badge. Yet the report also showed a replacement badge issued 3 months earlier, creating the argument he would almost certainly use. Someone else could have copied or borrowed it. The chain was growing stronger but not complete. Darren had manipulated labels, footage, records, and frightened employees. Still, one technical gap remained between his credentials and his physical presence. Evelyn's phone rang. She answered without giving her name. "Yes." A man's voice spoke quickly from the other end. Evelyn listened, then said, "Move the review out of Eastwood. External recorder. Independent counsel. State pharmacy liaison present." Leah stared at her. Dr. Patel appeared in the doorway behind Zoe. Even Marcus looked at the small mortar and pestle pin on Evelyn's collar with new attention. No ordinary customer could summon corporate counsel or a state liaison after closing hours. Evelyn ended the call and faced Marcus. "Darren has scheduled a community safety review for tomorrow. He intends to offer you reinstatement if you accept individual responsibility." "And the other drivers?" "He excluded them from the case." Marcus looked through the consultation room glass toward the counter where the red theft hold label still lay beside the unsigned agreement. "Then it is not a review." "What is it?" Evelyn asked. "A burial." At that moment, Leah's phone vibrated with a new message from Darren. "Bring no personal devices tomorrow. All discussion will remain confidential." Evelyn read it over Leah's shoulder, then looked at the 11 names on the exception recovery list. The truth had become too large for a manager's office, too human for a private settlement, and too dangerous to leave inside a system that had already tried to erase it. By 6 the next evening, the Eastwood Pharmacy no longer looked like a store preparing to close. Folding chairs had been arranged in straight rows between the greeting cards and the blood pressure machine. A portable microphone stood beside the same counter where the red theft hold label had been slapped across bag 417. Representatives from the courier contractor sat near the front with leather folders on their knees. Dr. Patel stood behind the pharmacy glass. Leah occupied a chair at the end of the second row, pale beneath the fluorescent lights, her hands locked around a paper cup she had not touched. Marcus entered wearing the same charcoal delivery jacket. The cuff was still frayed. His old phone remained dark in his pocket. He had slept less than 3 hours, and the suspension notice was still active, but he walked without lowering his head. Zoe held his hand until Dr. Patel's wife met them near the consultation room. The child wore her red helmet even though they had arrived by bus. Marcus bent to her level. "Stay with Mrs. Patel." Zoe nodded and touched the peeling silver star. "Are you coming back?" "I'm not going anywhere." Evelyn Brooks sat in the final row in her navy coat. Her small notebook closed on her lap. Darren had introduced her on the attendance sheet as customer witness, Eastwood incident. He had placed her far from the microphone and had not asked why corporate counsel, an independent compliance advisor, and a state pharmacy liaison had all confirmed attendance within an hour of her phone call. He was too busy arranging the room around his version of the truth. At precisely 6:15, Darren stepped behind the counter and welcomed everyone in a measured voice. "This review is not about blame," he began. "It is about restoring confidence after an unfortunate breakdown involving a contracted courier, a delayed pediatric shipment, and understandable confusion during a stressful evening." He paused just long enough for the words "understandable confusion" to settle over Marcus. "Brooks Pharmacy has always placed patients before publicity. That is why we hoped to resolve this privately." On the counter before him lay 3 documents. A letter restoring Marcus's courier access. A reimbursement agreement covering his lost shifts. A confidentiality clause restricting public discussion of the incident. Beside them sat the clear evidence sleeve containing the empty outer packaging from bag 417. Its blue seal still attached, and the red theft label crossing the white plastic like a wound that had dried but not disappeared. Darren lifted the first document. "Mr. Reed, the company is prepared to reinstate you immediately. The contractor will restore your credentials, and you will receive compensation for the interruption to your work." A murmur moved through the chairs. The courier representatives relaxed. One of them gave Marcus a small nod, as though the reasonable ending had arrived. Darren placed a pen beside the papers. "In return, we ask that you acknowledge the shipment remained in your possession beyond the approved route, and that subsequent confusion resulted from a procedural misunderstanding rather than intentional misconduct by any employee." Marcus did not approach the counter. "What happens to the other drivers?" Darren's expression remained warm. "This meeting concerns your incident. There are 11 names. There are 11 unrelated personnel matters with different facts. Were their files reviewed independently? That information is confidential." Marcus looked at the courier representatives. "Were they given appeals?" No one answered. Darren touched the restoration letter with 2 fingers. "Mr. Reed, you came here concerned about your job. We are returning it. I would encourage you not to let speculation stand between your daughter and financial stability." The words were soft. The pressure inside them was not. Marcus saw Zoe seated safely beside Mrs. Patel, the red helmet resting on her knees. He thought of the rent notice, the nearly empty refrigerator, and the morning shifts he could reclaim by signing. Darren had built the offer carefully enough to look like compassion and narrowly enough to leave every other damaged. Name buried. Marcus stepped forward. The room quieted as he reached the counter. He picked up the restoration letter, read the first line, then placed it back without touching the pen. "A private apology can restore my paycheck," he said. "It cannot restore 11 names you buried." One of the contractor representatives shifted in his chair. Darren let out a slow breath. "No one was buried. Drivers were released after repeated failures documented by the system. The independent compliance advisor opened a folder. The system record shows late-night label changes linked to management credentials. Credentials can be shared, Darren replied. Badges can be duplicated. Passwords can be compromised. Mr. Reed himself had physical access to the shipment. It was the explanation he had been preparing. Reasonable, technical, difficult to disprove with one photograph or one frightened employee. The state liaison asked whether the access badge entering the label room at 8:40 belonged to Darren. The badge number was assigned to me, Darren said, but a replacement card was issued months ago after the original went missing. Anyone could have used it. The room shifted back toward uncertainty. The contractor's attorney wrote something in the margin of his folder. Leah stared down at her untouched cup. For a moment, Darren appeared to have reopened every gap the evidence had begun to close. He turned toward Marcus with an expression almost regretful. This is why private resolution protects everyone. Incomplete information can destroy innocent careers. Marcus looked at the evidence sleeve. Then let the complete information speak. Darren's smile weakened. The compliance advisor placed the 9/11 incident report on the counter. This document says the blue security seal had been broken. That was the information available at the time. Dr. Patel stepped forward from behind the glass. I examined the seal. It was intact. After Mr. Reed applied unauthorized cooling materials. Cooling packs do not repair a broken seal, Dr. Patel said. The portable microphone gave a soft burst of static. Chairs stopped shifting. The refrigeration motors became suddenly audible behind the pharmacy wall. The compliance advisor laid down the temperature record next. The medication remained within usable range. Then the hospital transfer receipt. It arrived with the original seal number and was administered successfully. Darren nodded as though conceding a minor point. I am grateful the patient received care. That does not establish who altered the route or why the shipment remained with the courier. No, Marcus said. It proves you wrote part of the story before the facts existed. Darren's eyes hardened. Be careful with accusations. The report was created at 9/11. Dr. Patel did not scan the bag until later. The seal was never broken. Darren turned toward the room. Preliminary incident language is often corrected after inspection. Leah raised her head. Mine was corrected after I signed it. Every face turned toward her. Darren's voice lowered. Leah, we agreed personnel discussions would remain confidential. The report I signed did not say the seal was broken. You were under stress. You added that line. Leah's hands trembled, but she did not look away. Darren glanced toward the ceiling camera, then at the portable recording device beside the compliance advisor. This meeting should pause until counsel can verify the integrity of these claims. Evelyn spoke from the last row. Is the entire session being recorded outside the Eastwood server? Darren looked at her as if reminded she was present. Ma'am, recording procedures are not relevant to you. They are relevant if the local system fails again. The camera interruption was a technical malfunction. At what time? The compliance advisor asked. Darren answered too quickly. 8:39. Silence spread from the front row to the back. The public audit summary had never stated the minute. It only described a 7-minute interruption. Marcus saw Darren realize it a second too late. Evelyn's fingers settled on the closed notebook. The state liaison leaned toward the microphone. How did you know the outage began at 8:39? Darren reached for his water glass. A thin line of moisture had formed along his temple. I reviewed internal records. Those records were sealed this morning, the advisor said. Darren put the glass down without drinking. Near the aisle, Vanessa Hart rose from her chair with her phone held in both hands. Her confidence was gone, replaced by the uneasy expression of someone discovering that cruelty had accidentally preserved the truth. I still have the original video, she said. The one from that night. I never edited it because I thought I might post it. Darren's head turned. Ms. Hart, Distributing footage involving patient information could violate privacy law. The bag was face down, Vanessa said. But you called it 417 before anybody turned it over. Darren stepped away from the counter. We will not play unauthorized material in a public forum. Then we can play it for counsel, the state liaison replied. Vanessa connected her phone to the portable display. A loading circle appeared on the screen beside the counter. Darren looked toward the pharmacy technician controlling the power strip and made one small motion with his fingers. The screen went black. The microphone died. Half the ceiling lights blinked out, leaving the clear sleeve containing bag 417 illuminated beneath the emergency fixture. No one shouted. No one moved toward Darren. In the darkness, Evelyn Brooks rose from the last row, removed the mortar and pestle pin from her navy collar and placed it on top of her closed notebook. Then the independent recorder's backup battery clicked on, the display returned, and Vanessa's original video began loading from an external copy Darren could no longer reach. Vanessa's video opened on the portable display with a burst of frozen static. Then the pharmacy appeared exactly as it had the night before. White counter, lowered security gate, Marcus standing beside Zoe, and bag 417 lying face down beneath Darren's palm. The digital clock in the upper corner read 9:08. Darren's recorded voice filled the room. Bag 417 should never have come back through that door. On screen, the number was still hidden against the countertop. No scanner had completed a read. No one had spoken the shipment code aloud. The recording continued. Vanessa's camera moved closer as Darren pressed the red theft hold sticker across. The white plastic. In the dark pharmacy window behind him, his reflection reached inside his jacket and slipped a white access badge into the inner pocket. The independent compliance advisor froze the frame. The tiny black number on the badge enlarged across the display. It matched the replacement management card that had opened the label room at 8:40 p.m. A minute later, Admin 2 had printed the false Holbrook Avenue label. No one spoke. The projector fan whispered beside the counter. Somewhere in the second row, a paper cup creaked beneath Leah's fingers. Darren stared at the image of his own reflection as though it belonged to someone he had never met. That proves I possessed a company badge, he said. His voice had gone dry. It does not prove I used it. Reflections distort details. The state pharmacy liaison turned toward the compliance advisor. Show the access sequence. A new screen appeared. At 8 hours 40 minutes and 12 seconds, the replacement badge opened the label room. At 8 hours 40 minutes and 31 seconds, Admin 2 accepted Darren's management credentials. At 8 hours 41 minutes and 3 seconds, the hospital destination was overwritten with the commercial annex code. At 8 hours 41 minutes and 19 seconds, the camera archive stopped recording. 7 minutes later, it resumed. The timestamp stood in a clean vertical line, too simple to argue with and too exact to dismiss as coincidence. Darren reached for the edge of the counter. His fingertips pressed into the laminate. Credentials can be stolen. Evelyn rose from the last row. She did not approach the microphone yet. Then the person using them would also need your authorization token. Darren looked toward her. You have no standing to interpret internal security. Evelyn opened her notebook and removed a printed authentication report. The token was approved from your phone at 8:40. The room turned toward her. Darren's face lost what little color remained beneath the fluorescent lights. How did you obtain that? Evelyn did not answer. Not yet. The compliance advisor placed Marcus's photograph on the screen beside Vanessa's video. The image had survived the deletion attempt. It showed the blue seal unbroken, the temperature indicator orange but recoverable, the older pediatric hospital label beneath. The newer Holbrook label, the Admin 2 code, and the wall clock reading 9:24. A server log appeared beneath it. Deletion request submitted from the Eastwood manager console 16 seconds after upload. Blocked by external archive policy. Marcus stood near the counter with his hands loose at his sides. Zoe had moved beside him during the outage and now held 2 fingers around the cuff of his jacket. She looked at the screen, then up at her father. Your picture stayed, she whispered. Marcus breathed out slowly. Yes. He did not smile at Darren. He did not look toward the customers who had whispered behind him. His eyes remained on the evidence. Leah stepped toward the portable microphone. Her paper cup remained behind on the chair. "There is more," she said. Her voice shook on the first word and steadied on the second. She played the voicemail she had preserved with its original metadata. Darren's voice filled the store again. "Route it to someone the contractor will drop before they ask questions. Mark it as a driver loss. The charity account will absorb it." The next screen showed the exception recovery list. 11 names. 11 contracted drivers ranked by unstable income, lack of legal representation, short work history, and low likelihood of appeal. Marcus Reed appeared third, beside the notes single dependent, rental instability, low appeal risk. A courier representative lowered his folder. Another covered his mouth with one hand. These were not careless drivers chosen by chance. They were people selected because resisting would cost them more than surrendering. Evelyn finally stepped to the microphone. She removed the small mortar and pestle pin from her navy collar and placed it beside the clear evidence sleeve containing bag 417. The metal made a soft click against the counter. "My name is Evelyn Brooks," she said. "I founded this company." The sentence passed through the room without echo. Darren looked at the pin, then at the Brooks Pharmacy logo mounted above the prescription shelves. His lips parted, but no sound came. Evelyn continued before anyone could turn the moment into applause or theater. "Ownership does not make me the most credible person here. The evidence does." She gestured toward Marcus's photograph, the access logs, and the frozen frame from Vanessa's video. "The man this store treated as a threat preserved the medication, documented the seal, protected the witness who had failed him, and refused money that would have buried 11 other names." The hospital representative rose from the front row. "Shipment 417 reached pediatric neurology within the verified temperature range," she said. "The patient received the medication before respiratory intervention became necessary. The treating physician confirms the transfer prevented an escalation that likely would have required intubation." Zoe's grip tightened around Marcus's sleeve. He closed his hand gently over hers. Darren shook his head once. Those shipments were already compromised. The batches ending in 62A, 19C, and 44F had temperature irregularities before they reached Eastwood. The state liaison stopped writing. The room became so still that the click of her pen against the table sounded sharp. "Those lot numbers have not been released," she said. Darren blinked. "They were in the reports." "They are in sealed investigative files," the advisor replied. "Files you were ordered not to access." A folder slid from Darren's hand and struck the floor. Pages spread across the tile, white against gray, while no one bent to retrieve them. His explanation had not merely weakened. It had closed around him. Evelyn turned to the corporate counsel. "Suspend Mr. Cole's access immediately. Preserve every device, account, and physical record connected to Eastwood, Brooks Promise, and the commercial annex. Notify the State Board and financial crimes investigators that the company will cooperate without limitation." Darren's phone vibrated in his pocket. He removed it and found the screen already locked. The store computer behind him returned to the login page. His badge reader flashed red. The power he had used through policies, passwords, and private rooms disappeared without anyone raising a hand against him. Evelyn faced the courier contractor next. "Every driver named on that list will receive written exoneration, corrected employment records, and an independent appeal. Copies will go to every employer, insurer, and screening agency that received the false allegations." Vanessa stood near the aisle, her phone lowered. "Mr. Reed," she said, "I was wrong. I recorded you because I thought I understood what I was seeing." Marcus looked at Zoe before answering. "Then use the same recording to correct it." Vanessa nodded, unable to meet his eyes. Leah approached him last. "I'm sorry," she said. "I let fear make someone else carry what I did." Marcus did not offer instant forgiveness. "Tell the truth all the way through," he said. "That is where you start." Evelyn held out the microphone to him. The room waited for anger, vindication, or a demand that Darren be humiliated as publicly as Marcus had been. Marcus looked instead at the 11 names on the display. He read each one slowly, allowing every person to exist as more than a line in a hidden spreadsheet. Then he placed the microphone back on the counter. "Clear their records before you offer me anything." The silence that followed was different from the silence of accusation. It did not press him down. It made space around him. For the first time since the alarm had screamed, Zoe let go of his sleeve and slipped her hand into his. Evelyn looked at Marcus across bag 417, no longer as a stranger being tested and not yet as someone entitled to enter his life. "I want you on the reform team," she said. Marcus glanced at the corporate folders, the executives, and the pin resting beside the seal they had all ignored. "Will the drivers have a vote?" he asked, "or only a seat for the photograph?" And as the people who once controlled his future waited for his answer, Marcus understood that being believed was not the end of the story. The real question was what he would choose to protect now that the room could no longer look away. The room emptied without applause. Chairs folded with soft metal clicks, folders closed, and the people who had once watched Marcus as though guilt could be read from a worn jacket now passed him with lowered voices and uncertain eyes. Darren left through the employee corridor beside corporate counsel and a state investigator, his badge sealed inside a clear evidence pouch. No one touched him. No one needed to. By midnight, his access to every Brook system had been revoked, his company devices secured, and the Eastwood records placed under an external preservation order. The next morning, 11 former couriers received calls informing them that their cases had been reopened. Within 3 weeks, each received written exoneration, corrected employment records, lost income, and confirmation that the false allegations had been removed from contractor databases and background screening reports. Darren was later charged with diverting specialty medication, falsifying records, obstructing an investigation, and misusing charitable funds. The justice was not dramatic. It arrived in stamped envelopes, restored credentials, frozen accounts, sworn statements, and doors that could no longer be closed from the inside. Marcus's own suspension disappeared before sunrise. His contractor offered back pay, a public apology, and a new route. Evelyn offered something different. She asked him to help rebuild the system that had failed him. Marcus read the proposed role twice at his kitchen table while Zoe ate cereal across from him, her red helmet resting on the empty chair beside her. Cold chain safety and courier advocate. The title came with better pay, health insurance, and an office at the flagship location. Marcus set the paper down. "Does it say drivers can vote?" he asked Evelyn later. They were standing in a conference room with glass walls, surrounded by executives who had learned to stop speaking before he finished. Evelyn opened the revised charter. 1 elected courier from each region. Full voting rights on safety and discipline policy. Independent appeals? Outside the delivery contractor. Camera storage? Off-site, with deletion controlled by compliance and the state liaison during active cases. Marcus nodded once. "Then I'll take the job." He did not accept the framed community hero certificate the company had prepared. He asked that the money for the ceremony be used to reimburse couriers for required cold packs and emergency equipment. "I brought back a bag," he said. "The job is making sure the next person doesn't need courage just to follow procedure." Leah's second chance came with boundaries. She was suspended, interviewed by investigators, and required to complete ethics training before returning under supervision. Her cooperation protected her from being treated as the architect of Darren's scheme, but fear did not erase the records she had changed. On her first day back, she found Marcus near the Eastwood consultation room, reviewing a new transfer checklist. "I'm sorry," she said. "I kept telling myself I was protecting my mother." Marcus closed the folder. "Fear explains what you did." Leah's eyes filled, but he did not rush to comfort her. "It does not erase it. What you do next is the part you still own." She nodded and returned to the counter, where a courier was waiting for a receipt. This time she checked the seal, read the time aloud, and gave him a signed copy before he asked. Zoe was not taken to hearings or used in company photographs. The adults handled the investigation. Her world returned to school lunches, spelling tests, and the silver star peeling from her helmet. One Saturday, Marcus took her to visit the hospital's family resource center after the boy's parents agreed to meet them privately. The child was already back in school. He sent Zoe a drawing of a white medicine bag wearing a red cape. On the bus ride home, she held the picture carefully between both hands. "So he's okay because you went back?" she asked. "A lot of people helped after I went back. But you went first." Marcus looked out at Baltimore sliding beyond the window. Sometimes going first is just what the moment asks. That evening, Zoe peeled a second silver star from a sticker sheet and pressed it onto her helmet beside the first. "One is for bringing it back," she said. "The other is because you didn't become mean." Marcus could not answer immediately. He placed his hand over the helmet and smoothed both stars until their edges held. Brooks' Promise was rebuilt with patients, pharmacists, hospital staff, and couriers on its governing board. Every suspension now required 2 independent reviews. Drivers could challenge a report without losing access to their entire income. Medication cameras uploaded to a server no store manager could erase. The 11 couriers whose names had once appeared on the exception recovery list were invited to help design the appeal process. Some declined. Some returned. All received the choice that had once been taken from them. Bag 417 remained in its clear evidence sleeve. Evelyn had it placed inside a small training display at the flagship pharmacy, its blue seal still intact beneath the red theft hold label. The object that had once been used to mark Marcus as a threat now sat beneath a simple sentence. "Evidence is how dignity survives power." Marcus saw it often but never stopped in front of it for long. He preferred the training room, where he taught new couriers to photograph the seal, temperature indicator, route label, and clock in one frame. He never mentioned his army service unless someone asked why his hands moved with such care. "Make it easier for the truth to find you," was all he usually said. Evelyn did not try to repay him with access to her world. She listened when he disagreed with executives. She carried boxes when the Courier Council moved into its first office. After difficult meetings, they sometimes ate at a small diner where the coffee was stronger than it needed to be and the booths had cracks repaired with silver tape. They spoke slowly about the people they had lost. Marcus's wife, Evelyn's brother, and about the habits grief had left behind. She learned not to solve every wound with authority. He learned that accepting honest help did not make him dependent. Months passed before she asked, "Dinner after the meeting?" Marcus looked at the stack of revised policies still waiting for courier signatures. "After every driver gets a copy." Evelyn lifted half the folders. "Then I'll help carry them." There was no promise beyond that evening, and neither of them needed one. One night at 9:07, the Eastwood door opened and a young courier stepped inside carrying a sealed medicine bag. His jacket was damp from rain. His voice shook when he explained that the package had been left in his carrier by mistake. Zoe sat at a side table doing homework, her red helmet beside her with 2 silver stars shining beneath the fluorescent lights. Marcus stood near the consultation room, reviewing a temperature log. The new technician behind the counter did not reach for the alarm. She did not lower the gate or print an accusation. She brought out the return form, checked the blue seal, and said, "Thank you for bringing it back." The courier released a breath he had been holding since he entered. Marcus watched the receipt pass across the counter, then turned toward the door. Evelyn stood there with 2 paper cups of coffee, waiting without interrupting. For a moment, the pharmacy became quiet. Not the silence of people shocked by wealth or frightened by consequences, but the silence of a place finally understanding what it had learned. Marcus finished the record, made sure the medicine was moving toward the right patient, and only then walked toward Zoe and Evelyn. Behind him, the receipt printer began to hum, putting the truth into ink before anyone had the chance to replace it with suspicion. Dignity had never needed to raise its voice. It had only needed one good man to carry it back through the door.